So DICE has recently graced us with the potential saviour of Battlefield 2042 over here on PC and next-gen consoles. That being the introduction of 64-player Conquest and Breakthrough into all-out warfare. But I'm going to throw out a particularly controversial opinion on this. 64 players just isn't it, boys. I've seen in various communities on Twitter, Reddit and YouTube talking about how 64 players has really reinvigorated Battlefield 2042 for the player base, and how great it is in comparison to the original 128 players 64v64 all-out warfare that we were subject to from the start of the game. But you know what? I'm definitely not one of those people, and to be fair, I never thought I'd be saying that either. It'd definitely be wrong of me to say that there aren't benefits to the 64 player 32 versus 32 that we've grown accustomed to from Battlefields of old. And so let me run through the one major benefit that I've noticed, especially playing on PC, and that is the significant improvement on performance on my PC along with many other people's too. I think the 64 player Conquest and Breakthrough alongside the introduction of 2042 Rush has shown that the PCs that we have are capable of running 2042, more so the impact that the 128 players have on our rigs is probably a bit too detrimental at this stage. Let me explain to you in a bit of detail a couple of points as to why I think 64 players on the 2042 maps just isn't the way to play the game. I've been talking about this a lot in my recent videos, but we're going to go on about the map sizes once again. Obviously, when you're playing 32 versus 32, DICE have done the right thing and they've shrunk the map size down considerably. But even saying that, the maps still feel very barren and empty. To me, I get the impression that that's just because they were built with 128 players in mind, so even though they've shrunk them down to fit into 32 versus 32, the general map flow just doesn't quite work in the same fashion. Along with that, there's some significant points of interest that have been taken out of some of the maps just because we're playing in a smaller map area. The key one that I've noticed straight away is the lack of the stadium on Hourglass. And as an infantry player, that's one of my favourite places to go in the entire game, just because it provides varied encounters and different kinds of firefights than you've seen in other maps on 2042. Now speaking of gunfights, in the 64 player Conquest and Breakthrough, I also feel like you don't get many of those either. Even though the maps have been shrunk down, it just feels to me like you go for a significant period of time without actually getting in any combat, especially if you're running around on foot. This can be even more frustrating when you're having to cover vast distances on foot as well, because there are less vehicles in the game, with the expectation that you're going to be able to travel that ground quickly being taken away. As such, I genuinely felt like I was in more of a running simulator than I ever did when I was playing in the 128 player lobbies. That's not to say, again, that the 64 player versions of the maps are bad. I honestly just don't think DICE wanted to design them for 64 players in mind. With that being said, I'll hold my hands up if I'm in the minority here. I really do think the 64 player modes are best suited to the Portal maps, taken from previous Battlefield games which were built around 32 versus 32. Performance increases aside, I would personally be much rather playing a game where I'm constantly engaged in activity and in unique play spaces. That's honestly where I think the 64 player modes are lacking the most. To me, it just feels like they've been done before. Please do let me know down in the comments below if you think the 64 player modes are better or if you're having more fun with them. I'm definitely keen to hear other points of view, and hopefully it has actually improved the performance for some of you out there. Ultimately, if it gives you an outlet to enjoy 2042 more power to you. As always though guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for your time, and I'll catch you all in the next one.